a boy sits in a classroom. On the board in narration, it says that this was love at first sight. A silver-haired girl walks in. Her beautiful, glittering silver hair catches attention. Her refined manners make her look elegant. Her gentle, clear voice stands out. Her cute smile feels warm and friendly. Everything about her draws people in. The girl speaks. She introduces herself as Charlotte Bennett and asks to be called Charlotte. She also says that she will be in his care. That is where this part ends. The boy is revealed to be Aoyagi Akihito. A friend talks to him and says they're lucky because a transfer student just joined right after summer break. Another boy is shown. He is introduced as Sionji Akira, Akihito's friend since elementary school and his partner in crime. They look toward the silver-haired girl. Someone wonders if she already has a boyfriend. They say she is so cute that she probably does. Akira tells Akihito to just ask her directly. Akihito is nervous. Akira jokes that all they can do is hope she doesn't have one. Akihito suddenly turns around and calls out to her. He loudly asks Charlotte if she has a boyfriend. Charlotte is completely caught off guard. Her face turns bright red as she freezes in place. Clearly not expecting such a sudden and direct question. She repeats the words in her head, trying to process them. A boyfriend? Her hands tremble and her legs stiffen as the entire classroom focuses on her. Charlotte nervously covers her mouth, her eyes wide and flustered. After a short moment, she finally answers. She softly says that she doesn't have one. The boys in the classroom instantly explode with excitement. Teachers shout at Sionji for asking something so personal in public, but the damage is already done. Everyone heard her answer. The teacher suddenly steps in. She scolds Sionji for being loud during homeroom, then turns to Akihito as well, saying he's been talking too. The class freezes when she approaches. She places her hand on Sionji's shoulder, making him panic as he realizes he's in trouble. The homeroom teacher is revealed as Hanazawa Miyu. Miyu angrily points at Sionji. She tells him she will lecture him later, not just for what happened now, but for being noisy all day. Sionji desperately tries to defend himself, but she shuts him down, saying it's because he's too loud. While this is happening, Charlotte quietly watches. She gently covers her mouth, her cheeks still red, looking both shy and slightly amused by the chaos. Akihito sits quietly at his desk, still thinking about Charlotte. He reflects on how big the world really is, and how unbelievable it feels that a transfer student from England has suddenly appeared in his classroom. As Charlotte walks between the desks, he watches her from behind. In his mind, he can't shake the strange feeling that someone who looked just like her was never supposed to be part of his ordinary life. Break time begins. Sionji calls Akihito a traitor for suddenly acting different. Even so, he admits that Charlotte is amazing. Akihito awkwardly apologizes. Even at her age, she can speak Japanese so fluently. Akihito explains what fluently means, saying it's the ability to speak smoothly and naturally. Sionji seems impressed and says he understands. Then he points out something interesting. Akihito is also good at speaking English, so he wonders why Charlotte's Japanese feels so special. Akihito thinks for a moment and explains that it's not the same. For a Japanese person, learning English is one thing, but for an English person to learn Japanese, with its hiragana, katakana, and kanji, is much more difficult. That's why Charlotte's fluency feels so amazing. Akihito suddenly realizes something important. In such a short time, Charlotte has already been surrounded by other boys. He watches as one of them happily talks to her, not even noticing Akihito at all. Akihito quietly sighs at his desk. Meanwhile, Charlotte smiles brightly, clasping her hands together, enjoying all the attention she's receiving. As class ends, a group of students gathers around Charlotte. They invite her to hang out after school, even suggesting things like going to karaoke and throwing her a welcome party. More and more people join in, even students from other classes. Charlotte looks a little overwhelmed as everyone talks over each other. Akihito stands nearby, watching quietly. When someone calls out her name, Charlotte turns with a gentle smile and apologizes, saying her little sister is waiting for her at home, so she can't stay. The students quickly insist that it's fine and tell her she can bring her sister along too. Akira enthusiastically encourages her, and the others back him up. Charlotte begins to look troubled and unsure, not knowing how to respond. From a distance, Akihito notices her discomfort. He rubs his head nervously, thinking that while Akira probably means no harm, the pressure from everyone is starting to make Charlotte uneasy. Akihito finally speaks up. He tells everyone that tests start next week, so maybe this isn't really the time to be planning parties. He asks Akira to stop, and even tries to calm the rest of the class. But the room turns against him. Voices start flying at him from every direction, saying it's normal to throw a welcome party, that it's what the class wants, and questioning whether studying even matters that much. Someone even mutters that Aoyagi is the worst. Akihito realizes what's happening. He has gone against the group, and now he's being isolated. It's group psychology. When one person disagrees with everyone else, they become the target of criticism. Akihito understands that if things keep going like this, the situation will only get worse, even though he isn't on good terms with most of the class. Except for Akira. He knew this would happen. Still, he isn't worried about being disliked. What he wants is to stop the pressure on Charlotte. But here, in this classroom, that's impossible for him alone. Only one person can shoulder this burden. Akira suddenly steps forward and bows deeply, apologizing to everyone. He announces that the welcome party should be held after the tests are over. Hearing this, the mood of the class changes. Some students realize Akihito had a point. Akira is the one putting tests first. Charlotte listens quietly, and someone mentions that if they party now, it might hurt the class average, which would make Charlotte feel responsible. That makes the others hesitate. Akira smoothly turns it around. He smiles and says that after the tests, they'll throw an even bigger party to make up for it. That way, the welcome party will be even better. The class starts to agree, and the tension finally fades. As people begin chatting again, Akira walks over to Akihito and quietly thanks him. The crisis is over, for now. After class, homeroom teacher Hanazawa Miyu corners Akira. She grabs his tie and praises him in a sharp, teasing way, saying it was admirable how he tried to protect the class average, especially since he's usually the one who drags it down the most. Akira nervously laughs it off. Akihito appears, and Miyu turns her attention to him. She tells him that although she didn't come back because of him, he shouldn't look so scared. Then she drops a bomb. Akihito will also be punished in the morning. Miyu explains that she suddenly needed help, so she brought Akihito to the reference room. Akihito tells her not to scare him like that if she just wanted help. Miyu calmly explains that only Sion-ji was officially being punished, but Akihito was getting badmouthed by the class again. So, under the circumstances, bringing him here was a good excuse to pull him away from all that pressure. Miyu questions Akihito directly. She asks why he always chooses to play the villain, taking on the unpopular role by himself, even when everyone else is against him. Akihito realizes she saw everything. When he asks how long she had been watching, Miyu admits she had been there since before he stopped Sion-ji. She explains that teachers shouldn't interfere too much in student matters. So she waited, trusting that Akihito would handle it. And he did. Miyu admits that, honestly, she probably should have intervened earlier. But seeing how he stepped in, she now thinks it was the right call. Akihito, carrying a stack of books, says it's fine. He doesn't really mind. Miyu looks at him quietly, starting to realize just how kind and self-sacrificing he really is. Akihito quietly reflects that in this world, someone always has to be the sacrifice. Miyu immediately smacks him on the head with a book, telling him to stop talking like some tragic philosopher. She scolds him for lacking cooperation and warns that if he keeps thinking like that, he won't last long in high school. Miyu bluntly tells him she'll lower his grades. Akihito asks if being that unfair is really okay for a teacher. Miyu leans in close and says that if she weren't at least a little unfair, she wouldn't survive in this society. Akihito can only smile awkwardly, wondering what kind of adult she really is. Miyu snaps him back to reality, demanding to know what he's thinking. After leaving the school, Akihito walks home alone through the quiet streets. Miyu's words echo in his mind. Treasure yourself more? Okay. She had also called him a good student, and for once, that stuck with him. Akihito looks up at the sky and quietly thinks that maybe he really should start valuing himself more. Suddenly, he hears crying from nearby. A small girl's loud sobs cut through the street. Akihito turns and rushes toward the sound, and there he sees her, sitting alone on the sidewalk, crying while crowds of people pass her by. She wonders if nobody is helping, because they can't understand her English. That's when Akihito rushes in. He kneels down in front of her and gently asks if she got separated from someone. Charlotte looks up at him, still teary-eyed. Charlotte suddenly panics and runs away, hiding behind a nearby pole. Akihito freezes, surprised, apologizing for calling out so suddenly. Peeking out from behind the pole, Charlotte quietly looks at him, trying to figure out whether she can trust him. Akihito carefully lowers himself to Charlotte's level, so he doesn't scare her. He introduces himself and gently asks her name. After a moment of hesitation, the little girl quietly answers, Emma. Akihito repeats it kindly and asks where she got separated from Lottie. Emma suddenly panics again, shouting that Lottie is gone. Akihito realizes he has to calm her down first, before he can get any useful information. Thinking fast, he looks for something that might make a child feel safe. Then he notices the small hair clip in Emma's hair and uses it to get her attention. Akihito shows Emma a picture of a kitty on his phone. Her face instantly lights up. She grabs the phone with sparkling eyes and excitedly says she loves cats. Akihito realizes he found the perfect way to calm her down. As Emma smiles, Akihito quietly notices her silver hair and gentle face, starting to connect the dots about who she might really be. Akihito gently asks Emma to say her full name. She proudly answers, Emma Bennett. Encouraged, Akihito suggests they go look for Lottie together. In his mind, he realizes the truth. Lottie is actually Charlotte Bennett, Emma's older sister. Emma happily agrees, now trusting Akihito enough to go with him. Akihito asks if Emma is ready to go. She looks up at him, hesitates for a moment, then suddenly reaches out. With a bright smile, she offers him her hand. Akihito is caught off guard, but he understands. She wants to feel safe while walking. Emma happily grabs his hand and starts walking with him, but she quickly gets distracted, staring at cats on Akihito's phone while walking. Akihito gently warns her that it's dangerous to only look at the screen. Before he can react, Emma lets go and reaches for the phone again, leaving Akihito confused as she starts focusing on something new. Emma suddenly stops in the middle of the street and raises both her arms toward Akihito. She quietly says up. It's clear what she wants. She's tired, and she wants him to pick her up. Akihito hesitates for a moment, knowing people around them might stare. But seeing Emma's teary, pleading eyes, he gives in. He gently lifts her into his arms. Emma immediately relaxes, smiling happily as she clings to him, feeling safe. With Emma in his arms, Akihito continues walking down the street, carrying her forward as the afternoon quietly goes on. Akihito carries Emma into the school building, where a teacher with a ponytail notices them. She walks over and asks what happened. Akihito explains that he found the little girl crying on the street, all alone. The teacher kneels down and gently asks her name. Emma softly answers that her name is Emma. When the teacher asks if she knows what a teacher is, Emma looks confused and clings tighter to Akihito. Akihito tries to explain in a simple way, telling Emma that teachers are people who help you learn. He gently pats Emma's head, praising her for being smart. Emma beams happily from the head pat, completely relaxing in his arms. But suddenly, the teacher rushes in dramatically, shocked to see Emma being cuddled so closely by Akihito, making the moment awkward and funny at the same time. Akihito sits in the staff room with Miyu-sensei while Emma sleeps quietly on the sofa beside him. Miyu-sensei calmly pieces everything together. She realizes that Akihito assumed Emma was Charlotte's little sister and brought her to school for safety. But in reality, Charlotte had already called the school earlier, saying her sister went missing after she got home. Miyu-sensei reveals that she already contacted Charlotte and everything is being handled. Akihito is impressed. He realizes Miyu-sensei was already one step ahead of him the entire time. Suddenly, the door bursts open. Charlotte rushes into the room in a panic, crying out Emma's name. She looks terrified, afraid she lost her little sister forever. Akihito and Miyu-sensei turn in shock as Charlotte desperately searches the room for Emma, the tension instantly rising. Miyu-sensei calmly points Charlotte toward the sofa. Emma is there, fast asleep, curled up under a blanket. Charlotte freezes when she sees her little sister safe. All the fear and panic she had been holding back finally drains away. The moment the tension leaves her, Charlotte's legs give out. She stumbles forward, overwhelmed by relief. Akihito rushes to her side and catches her hand before she falls. Charlotte apologizes weakly. Charlotte finally comes face to face with Akihito. She bows deeply and apologizes for being sweaty and disheveled, clearly embarrassed after running all over town looking for Emma. Akihito quickly waves it off, telling her it's nothing and that anyone would look like that after desperately searching for their little sister. Charlotte looks up at him, still flustered but relieved. Charlotte shyly thanks Akihito for helping her when she was in trouble. She tells him he seems like a reliable and kind person. Akihito instantly turns bright red from the compliment, completely flustered. Miyu-sensei teasingly points it out and even threatens to take a picture of his red face. Panicking, Akihito blurts out that since Charlotte is here now, he's going home. As he turns to leave, Emma softly calls out to him, stopping him in his tracks. Akihito tells Emma that since Lottie is here now, everything is okay and he's going home. Emma looks up at him, confused and a little worried, not wanting him to leave. Before she can say anything more, Charlotte rushes in and happily calls out Emma's name. Emma instantly brightens up and jumps off the sofa. Charlotte notices how closely Emma was clinging to Akihito earlier. With a gentle smile, she remarks that Emma seems very fond of him. Akihito awkwardly admits it might be true, clearly flustered. Charlotte then leans forward and softly says his first name, Akihito, showing that she remembered it. Hearing his name from her makes him even more embarrassed as their connection becomes a little more personal. Charlotte kneels in front of Emma with a playful smile. She suggests that Emma should call Akihito Oni-chan, a friendly way for a younger child to address an older brother. Akihito instantly realizes what Charlotte is trying to do and gets flustered, while Emma looks curious and tries to repeat the word. Charlotte gently corrects her pronunciation, guiding her slowly. Emma suddenly lights up. With a big, happy smile, she loudly calls out, Oni-chan. The word hits Akihito like a shock. He freezes in pure embarrassment as Emma beams proudly, clearly delighted by how happy it makes everyone. Charlotte gently tries to pull Emma away, telling her that it's time to go home. But Emma refuses to let go of Akihito's hand. She shakes her head and loudly says no, insisting that she wants to stay with Oni-chan instead. The situation quickly turns into a tug-of-war, with Emma stubbornly clinging to Akihito while Charlotte tries to reason with her. Akihito can only watch in panic as the small girl refuses to budge. Emma suddenly puffs up her cheeks and shouts that she wants to go home with Oni-chan. Charlotte freezes in shock, completely stunned by what she just heard. Miyu-sensei watches the scene quietly and finally understands what's happening. Akihito completely panics and blurts out that there's no way he can take Emma home. Miyu-sensei, however, just smiles confidently and gives him a thumbs up, telling him it's fine and he should just take her. Akihito tries to argue that even if he did, Emma would just throw another tantrum on the way. Miyu calmly points out that it all depends on how he persuades her. then encourages him to just go home together with Emma and see what happens. Akihito is left confused, while Emma quietly calls out his name. Charlotte suddenly turns to Akihito, blushing nervously. With her hands held close to her chest, she softly asks if it would be okay for him to come home with them. Akihito freezes in shock, unable to believe what he just heard. The situation has just become far more complicated than he ever expected. Charlotte bows deeply in front of Akihito, seriously begging him to walk home with them. Akihito completely freaks out, asking if she's really serious. Inside his head, everything turns into chaos. Going home alone, going home together, walking with a beautiful girl, none of it makes sense anymore, and he can't keep up with the situation at all. Overwhelmed, Akihito finally gives up thinking and just accepts it. With a tired sigh, he tells Charlotte he understands. Charlotte's face immediately lights up with relief and gratitude. She softly thanks him and gently suggests that they should go home now. Akihito picks up his bag, still feeling like this is all some kind of unreal dream. Charlotte smiles warmly at him, making his heart race even more. But before they can leave, Emma suddenly spreads her arms wide and steps in front of them. She grabs onto Akihito's arm tightly, staring up at him as if she's trying to say something important. Emma suddenly steps forward and blocks Akihito, clearly upset. Akihito sighs like he expected this and quietly says he knew it would happen. Charlotte kneels down in front of Emma and gently takes her hands, asking her to just walk home calmly. She explains that causing trouble would only make things harder for Akihito. Emma hesitates, taking a small step forward, but her face tightens and she starts shaking her head. Emma's eyes fill with tears, and she begins to softly cry, looking unbearably sad and lonely. Charlotte panics and rushes toward her, insisting that it's not what she meant. Akihito quickly steps in and offers to carry Emma if that will make her feel better, awkwardly adding that he won't if she doesn't want him to. The situation grows even more emotional as Emma clings to him, refusing to let go. Charlotte feels guilty for causing even more trouble and quietly apologizes to Akihito. Akihito reassures her that he's fine with it and gently pats Emma's head, saying it would probably be faster if he carried her. Emma immediately brightens up, smiling happily in his arms. Seeing that, Charlotte finally relaxes and agrees to it. The three of them start walking together. Akihito awkwardly admits that, honestly, carrying Emma feels more like a bonus than a burden. Charlotte apologizes again and promises she'll have a serious talk with Emma when they get home. But even so, Charlotte can't help smiling warmly at Akihito, telling him that he's really kind. Emma clings tightly to Akihito, still not fully understanding what's going on, but clearly enjoying being with her Oni-chan as they head home together. As they walk home, Charlotte thanks Akihito sincerely and compliments how good his English is. Akihito feels a little embarrassed and says they can just speak English from now on. He then tells Charlotte that her Japanese is just as impressive and asks how she learned it. Charlotte explains she was taught by her parents. Emma suddenly pops in happily, proudly saying that she also wants to speak Japanese. Akihito smiles and reassures Emma that she'll be able to speak it too someday. That instantly makes Emma excited and happy. Without warning, Emma suddenly leans forward and presses her face against Akihito, clinging to him affectionately. Akihito is caught completely off guard, while Charlotte watches quietly from the side. With an awkward smile, Akihito compares Emma to a playful little cat as she keeps sticking close to him. Charlotte notices how close Emma is clinging to Akihito and quietly admits she's surprised by how attached Emma has become. She explains that Emma is usually a very difficult child and never acts this spoiled toward anyone outside their family. Akihito gently strokes Emma's head, calling her a friendly kid, while Emma smiles happily in his arms. Curious, Charlotte asks him how he managed to make Emma so attached to him. Akihito awkwardly admits the truth. He just showed Emma some cute cat videos. Charlotte freezes for a moment, then remembers that Emma absolutely loves cats. Even so, She can't believe something that simple made Emma cling to him this much. After a short, thoughtful stare at Akihito, Charlotte suddenly smiles and points at him, declaring that he really is a kind person. Akihito is caught off guard by the sudden compliment. Charlotte explains that the real reason Emma became so attached to Akihito is simple, because he's genuinely kind. Akihito looks confused, not really understanding why she says that. Charlotte smiles brightly and confidently agrees with herself, saying it again as if it's obvious. As they keep walking, Charlotte suddenly starts acting shy and distant, covering her face in embarrassment. Akihito notices and asks why she's pulling away from him. Charlotte, clearly nervous after seeing her reaction, he apologizes to her by saying he must have made her to get uncomfortable by acting close to her. After saying it, he goes on by getting gloomy. But Charlotte still looks troubled, worried that she's done something wrong, as the awkward tension quietly grows between them. Charlotte fidgets nervously, her face bright red as she admits why she suddenly felt embarrassed. She remembered how sweaty she got from running earlier. She quietly panics, thinking Akihito might notice and feel uncomfortable. Akihito, meanwhile, can barely think straight because he finds her way too cute. But for Emma, she is jealous because he is falling for Charlotte rather than herself. They finally arrive near Charlotte and Emma's home. Charlotte politely thanks Akihito for everything he did today. Akihito brushes it off, saying there's no need to thank him, especially since helping Emma was just coincidence. Charlotte insists, saying she's grateful not just for Emma, but for how Akihito stood up for her as well. Akihito replies honestly that it's fine to invite people, but it's not right to force them, gently hinting about what happened earlier. Charlotte walks beside Akihito and gently asks him to forgive Akira for what happened earlier. She explains that she really was happy when she heard about the welcome party and never meant for things to turn bad. With teary eyes, she apologizes, saying that because of her, Akihito ended up looking like the villain. Akihito calmly tells her not to worry about it. He simply did what he wanted to do. Hearing that, Charlotte softly calls him truly kind once again. Charlotte steps forward, placing a hand on her chest and reaching out toward Akihito with a warm smile. She tells him that she hopes he'll accept her feelings of gratitude. Akihito, still holding Emma, shyly nods and says he understands. Charlotte smiles brightly, satisfied, as the quiet, heartfelt moment settles between them. They stop in front of Charlotte and Emma's apartment building. Charlotte nervously asks Akihito if he would like to come inside for a moment. Akihito, still holding Emma, hesitates but agrees. After saying it, she started to grin happily while walking behind him, which somehow made him to get suspicious about her. Afterwards, he looks at a door and points it out by saying it's his home. Charlotte takes out her key and cheerfully announces that she's opening the door. To Akihito's surprise, the door is already unlocked. Charlotte casually laughs it off, acting like it's no big deal, while Akihito stands there confused, holding Emma as the entrance opens in front of them. Charlotte finally reveals the truth. She peeks out from her apartment door, holding her key with a shy little smile, and tells Akihito that she actually lives right next door to him. That's why everything today felt so strangely close. Akihito freezes as it hits him. So this is what his teacher meant about getting involved with your neighbors. Charlotte gently takes Emma back in her arms, apologizing for suddenly leaving her with him, but thanking him for everything he did. As the sun sets and the hallway grows quiet, a heavy feeling settles in Akihito's chest, because now he understands meeting Charlotte and Emma wasn't just a coincidence, and whatever just began between them might not be as simple as it seemed. Charlotte stands in Akihito's doorway, smiling and saying, "Pardon the intrusion." Akihito, wearing casual clothes, gestures for them to come inside. Emma waves and also says, "Pardon the intrusion." Akihito looks nervous as he lets them in. Emma runs into the room, while Charlotte slowly steps forward and looks around. Charlotte says, "So this is a boys' room?" Charlotte explains she answered Akihito's intercom at night, because Emma wanted to see him. She also says Emma insisted on playing with him instead of sleeping. Emma asks Akihito to move his hands. Emma then pats the table and asks him to sit there. Emma suddenly hugs Akihito tightly while smiling and saying, "Eh." Akihito looks shocked and calls out her name. Emma cries and calls Akihito Oni-chan. Charlotte kneels beside her and tells her not to cause more trouble for him. Emma says Charlotte is being mean. Akihito laughs awkwardly and says he isn't bothered. Akihito says he isn't bothered and tells Charlotte she can sit wherever she wants. Charlotte thanks him and asks if she can sit too. Charlotte says Akihito is very kind. Akihito says he really doesn't mind. Charlotte moves to sit on Akihito's legs, and Akihito reacts in shock. Akihito quickly says she can sit anywhere she likes. Charlotte gets flustered and says she meant sitting on the floor. Charlotte sits down across from Akihito at the table. Akihito thinks to himself that he is glad they're sitting across from each other. Emma sits close to Akihito and says she wants to play. Akihito asks her what she wants to play. Emma says she wants to play with Oni-chan. Charlotte thinks Emma is saying that anything is fine as long as it's with him. Akihito asks Charlotte what Emma usually plays. Emma answers yep. Charlotte says Emma has been into dominoes lately. Emma says domino. Akihito says he doesn't have any dominoes. Charlotte stands up and says she will get them from her room. Akihito says Charlotte is nice. Emma says she really likes Charlotte. Charlotte places a box of dominoes on the table and thanks them for waiting. Akihito invites Emma to play, but Emma looks unhappy. Charlotte notices this and suggests Emma might not feel like playing dominoes. Emma suddenly spreads her arms and asks Akihito for a hug instead. Charlotte explains that Emma just wants to watch the dominoes fall, while Akihito sets them up. Akihito doubts it at first. Charlotte says Emma prefers this style and starts tapping the dominoes together. Emma gets excited and watches closely as Charlotte explains that Emma wants Akihito to arrange them for her. Charlotte and Akihito are sitting behind Emma while the dominoes are being lined up. Charlotte places pieces carefully and Emma watches closely. Emma turns her head toward Akihito, and when he looks back at her, she gives him a bright, happy smile. Charlotte laughs and says that Emma and Akihito get along really well and that Emma hasn't had this much fun in a long time. Akihito admits he can't help but spoil Emma because she's so cute. Charlotte agrees and says she's glad Emma has an Oni-chan to spoil her too. They finish setting up the dominoes and get ready to knock them down together. The dominoes collapse all at once, filling the room with loud clattering sounds. Emma's eyes light up. She claps her hands excitedly, completely absorbed in the moment. When it's over, she immediately asks if they can do it one more time. Akihito agrees without hesitation. As they prepare again, Emma suddenly leans forward and bumps into Akihito, calling out to him. When he asks what's wrong, she shyly says she was just calling him, nothing more. Akihito thinks to himself that he must be incredibly lucky. Charlotte gently turns that around, saying the truly lucky one is Emma for finding a kind, accepting older brother like him. Emma then looks straight at him with sparkling eyes and happily declares that she loves her Oni-chan. Akihito suddenly looks flustered, covering his face, clearly moved. Emma notices and asks if something is wrong or if he got hurt. Akihito quickly brushes it off, saying it's nothing and that the dominoes are almost ready. Emma immediately perks up, humming happily and chanting about dominoes. Charlotte watches from the side as Emma eagerly points at the setup. Emma excitedly knocks the dominoes down again, shouting in joy as they fall. Later, Charlotte holds a sleepy Emma in her arms near the door. She thanks Akihito sincerely, telling him he helped keep Emma company. Akihito humbly says he didn't do anything special, but Charlotte gently disagrees. Charlotte says Emma probably sees him as a hero. Akihito smiles and says he had a lot of fun too. Emma sleeps peacefully in Charlotte's arms. While Charlotte reflects that Japan must have been frightening for Emma at first, unable to speak the language, and that Akihito reached out to her at just the right time, which is why Emma grew so attached to him. Charlotte gently holds a sleeping Emma and speaks quietly. She says that until Emma gets used to life in Japan, she'd like to ask something. Looking a little hesitant, Charlotte asks Akihito if he would be Emma's playmate. Emma sleeps peacefully in her arms as Charlotte waits for his answer. Akihito repeats the word playmate, surprised. He thinks to himself that it's true Emma gets anxious easily, but he can't neglect his study for the sake of his own goals. Charlotte looks serious and continues, saying she's asking him because she believes he can help ease Emma's anxiety. Akihito reflects on Charlotte herself, a kind girl who thinks of others first and puts herself last. Akihito agrees to help, saying he can't do it every day, but he'll try to make time whenever possible. Charlotte's face immediately brightens as she thanks him sincerely. She then says it's about time for them to go and reaches for the door. As the door closes, Charlotte asks Akihito whether his family will be coming home soon. He answers calmly that no one is coming back. Charlotte reacts in surprise. Akihito explains that he lives alone. Charlotte looks at him again, clearly taken aback, and asks if that's really the case even though he's still in high school. Akihito confirms it quietly. Charlotte then gets deeply affected by what she just learned. Charlotte apologizes, realizing Akihito hasn't eaten yet because of them. She points out how late it's gotten, showing the time, worried it might be dangerous for him to go out now. Akihito hurriedly waves it off, saying it's fine and that he was planning to stop by the convenience store later anyway. Charlotte hesitates for a moment, then suddenly steels herself. With a bright, determined smile, Charlotte steps forward and declares that she'll make him a meal. Akihito freezes, completely caught off guard. His thoughts go blank as he stares at her, heart quietly shaken. Charlotte clutches Emma close and looks up at Akihito with worried eyes, quietly asking if he doesn't want her to cook for him. The thought doesn't even cross his mind. There's no way he could refuse. Flustered, he hurriedly agrees, asking her to please go ahead, completely caught off guard by how sincere she is. Later, in the kitchen, Charlotte ties her hair back and starts preparing the meal. Akihito watches from behind, still half convinced this whole situation feels unreal. As he rubs his cheek, Emma suddenly pops up beside him, calling out to him with bright energy. Inside, Akihito can't shake the feeling that with how lucky he's been today, something unexpected might be waiting for him. Charlotte, now wearing an apron, asks Akihito if there's anything he doesn't like to eat. He immediately panics and says no, insisting he eats pretty much anything. Charlotte notices his reaction and calmly asks why he's so nervous. Akihito hurriedly brushes it off, saying it's nothing, while Charlotte quietly accepts that answer and goes back to cooking. Later, Emma is already fast asleep, sprawled out comfortably with a little drool at the corner of her mouth. Akihito watches her with mixed feelings, thinking how unfairly adorable she is. He gently wipes her mouth, trying not to wake her up. Suddenly, Charlotte leans in close to his ear and softly warns him that he's not allowed to play pranks, sending a sharp shiver down his spine. Charlotte suddenly leans in, one hand to her cheek, eyes sparkling as she realizes something. She admits she only wanted to surprise him, just a little prank. Akihito, still rubbing his ear, admits it definitely caught him off guard. Akihito points out that Charlotte is surprisingly mischievous. She tilts her head, thinking about it, then softly says, maybe. Turning back toward him with a playful smile, Charlotte admits that maybe it's because it's him that she feels like teasing. Charlotte turns away with a small smile, brushing it off by saying it's nothing. A moment later, she places the dishes down and cheerfully announces that the food is ready. Akihito's eyes widen at the spread in front of him, genuinely impressed. As he sits there, still thinking about what she said earlier, Charlotte quietly unties her apron, watching him from the side. Akihito takes his first bite and immediately blurts out that it's delicious. Charlotte's face lights up with relief and happiness as she claps her hands, glad he likes it. He keeps eating without hesitation, clearly enjoying the meal. Charlotte rests her hands together and simply watches him, her gentle stare filled with warmth and satisfaction. While they eat together, Akihito asks if Charlotte cooks Japanese food often. She cheerfully says she loves Japan, so she makes it sometimes. He asks why this dish in particular, and she admits she originally wanted to make something else, but didn't have enough ingredients. Then, with sparkling eyes, she confidently declares that this is the dish Japanese men love the most. Akihito pauses, slightly stunned, repeating her words in disbelief. Charlotte explains she thought he would like it too, which is why she wanted to make it. Akihito silently wonders where she even got that idea from as he keeps eating. Despite his confusion, he continues enjoying the meal, clearly satisfied, while Charlotte watches him closely. With a satisfied smile and a full stomach, Akihito sincerely thanks Charlotte, saying he was really happy to have such a delicious meal made just for him. Charlotte quickly downplays it, saying it wasn't that big of a deal, but then turns serious, thanking him instead. She explains that nothing bad happened only because Akihito was there. If she had lost Emma, she wouldn't have been able to recover. Akihito agrees, pointing out that even though foreigners aren't uncommon these days, a small foreign girl like Emma being alone could be dangerous. He admits he wouldn't have been surprised if something terrible had happened. Charlotte pauses, then reflects on his words, repeating that Emma stands out. She draws attention without meaning to. Akihito calmly explains that he did say earlier Japan is relatively safe. He adds that while standing out can make someone an easy target, people generally keep an eye out, especially in crowded areas. Even if Emma were to get lost again, there would always be kind people willing to take her to a police station. Charlotte listens quietly, then smiles warmly and tells him that he's really kind. Akihito looks away, embarrassed, brushing it off and saying he's not really anything special. Charlotte leans forward, speaking more directly. She explains that when Akihito noticed her anxiety, he seriously thought about how to ease it. And that's what kindness really is. Akihito hesitates, saying anyone would have done the same. But Charlotte gently disagrees, saying not everyone is a good person. Some only put on a facade, while others genuinely care. Looking straight at him, she tells him plainly that he's the latter. Akihito, clearly flustered, admits he doesn't really have anything to give her in return, even if she praises him. Charlotte laughs softly and says she doesn't need anything at all. Then, gathering her courage, she adds that if she were to ask for something, she'd be happy if it was simply his friendship. Her words land gently but deeply, sincere and without ulterior motives. As Charlotte gets ready to leave, Akihito suddenly stops her. She turns back, asking what's wrong. After a hesitant pause, he asks her if she could not talk to him at school for a while, starting tomorrow. Charlotte is visibly confused, caught off guard by the request. Akihito explains his reasoning. If the two of them were suddenly seen talking closely at school, it would definitely draw attention. In his mind, that attention would spiral fast. Classmates gossiping, spreading rumors, interrogating him nonstop. The imagined chaos feels overwhelming. Akihito explains that he just wants to avoid getting into trouble. He worries that some classmates might gossip and start rumors, especially if they find out he and Charlotte live next door to each other. Charlotte listens quietly, her expression softening as she takes it in. After a brief pause, she says she understands what he's trying to say. Even though it will be a little lonely for her, she agrees to do it. They exchange a simple goodnight and part ways. That night, Emma sleeps peacefully, completely worn out from the day. Charlotte gently strokes her head, murmuring that it's been a long day. As she sits there in the quiet room, a thought suddenly crosses her mind, realizing once again that the house next door belongs to Aoyagi. At the time back in the school, a female teacher looks over a document and suddenly realizes she's seen this address before. When Charlotte confirms it, the teacher explains that Aoyagi is a boy from the class she's in charge of. Charlotte listens as the teacher recalls his reputation, often labeled a problem child and known for causing trouble. The image contrasts sharply with the gentle impression Charlotte has of him. Sensing Charlotte's unease, another teacher quickly intervenes, telling her not to tease the exchange student. She reassures Charlotte, saying Aoyagi is actually the most excellent student in the school. Charlotte looks up, surprised by the praise. The teacher introduces herself as Sasagawa-sensei, her calm demeanor immediately putting Charlotte at ease. As the teachers continue talking, one of them bluntly remarks that Aoyagi is certainly problematic, perhaps the most troublesome of them all. Charlotte can't help but feel a little upset, recalling how Hanazawa-sensei teased her even though they had just met. Trying to understand, Charlotte asks what kind of person Aoyagi really is. The answer surprises her. He's not a genius, but he is a prodigy. Charlotte repeats the words quietly to herself, processing the distinction. Miyu-sensei takes a more serious tone and tells Charlotte that if she ever has problems, she can rely on Aoyagi. She reassures her that even though he may be a little different from others, he would never abandon someone in need. Charlotte listens carefully, still unsure but deeply thoughtful. As she reflects, she finds it strange, despite calling him a problem child. Charlotte acknowledges Miyu-sensei's advice, saying that if anything like that happens, she'll rely on Aoyagi. Satisfied, the teacher adds one more thing. Aoyagi's words aren't something to always take at face value. Charlotte tilts her head, confused, wondering what she means by his words. Seeing her reaction, the teacher smiles knowingly, prompting Charlotte to think more carefully about how to understand him. Miyu-sensei explains that she's not saying that Charlotte shouldn't believe what Aoyagi says, but if his words are criticized by others, she shouldn't dismiss them outright either. He doesn't act on short-term emotions. He thinks ahead before doing anything. Because he sees things differently from everyone else, there's always a deeper meaning behind what he says. As Charlotte listens, the realization begins to settle in. She needs to read between the lines. Charlotte asks if that means Aoyagi is playing some kind of villain role. Miyu-sensei sighs and says she honestly doesn't know. Only Aoyagi himself would know his true intentions. She admits she told Charlotte all of this because she felt Charlotte might be able to understand him and get along with him. With a playful grin, Sasagawa-sensei blurts out that it must be a woman's intuition. After hearing it, Miyu-sensei slowly looks at her. Miyu-sensei suddenly grabs Sasagawa-sensei by the head and twists it with overwhelming force. Charlotte watches in stunned silence, thinking it feels like she's wandered straight into a manga gag scene. Miyu-sensei casually warns Charlotte to be careful, explaining that Sasagawa-sensei may not look like it, but she likes girls. Charlotte freezes in shock, barely able to respond. Charlotte calmly adds that same-sex marriage is legal in the UK anyway, so there's nothing strange about loving someone of the same sex. Finally, Miyu-sensei looks at her and remarks that Charlotte really is something special, leaving Charlotte quietly flustered and unsure how to respond. The meeting wraps up. Sasagawa-sensei tells Charlotte that they're finished and she's free to go. Charlotte hesitates, trying to say something, but is gently dismissed as the paperwork is set aside. Afterwards, she replies Miyu says they're childhood friends, so it doesn't matter about Sasagawa-sensei's feeling. Miyu-sensei reassures Charlotte, saying that living in Japan can be tough when you're not used to it, and tells her not to hesitate to come to her if she has any problems, whether they're about school or her personal life. Charlotte bows deeply and thanks her sincerely. As Charlotte turns to leave, Miyu-sensei casually adds that since she's come all this way, she could try getting herself a boyfriend. Charlotte turns back in shock, completely flustered by the sudden suggestion. Miyu-sensei points out her overly innocent reaction and bluntly asks if she's seriously never had a boyfriend before. Charlotte panics and hurriedly denies it, her face turning red. Watching her, Miyu-sensei smirks and remarks that boys would absolutely love that kind of innocent reaction. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, Charlotte covers her face with both hands and lets out a small cry, unable to handle the teasing anymore. Sasagawa-sensei makes a quiet comment about how Miyu really seems to enjoy teasing her favorite students, almost like an elementary schooler. Miyu-sensei immediately shoots her a sharp glare, asking if she said something. Sasagawa-sensei hurriedly brushes it off, but can't help pointing out that Miyu-sensei looks experienced in some ways. It still seems like she's never had a boyfriend either. That remark strikes a nerve. Miyu-sensei cracks her knuckles, threatening punishment, while Sasagawa-sensei panics and begs Bennett for help as she clings to her. Sasagawa-sensei and Miyu glare at each other, sparks practically flying, each blaming the other for how things turned out. Charlotte awkwardly announces that she'll be leaving now. As she goes, Miyu-sensei apologizes for the embarrassing scene and tells Charlotte she hopes she enjoys school life with interesting people like them. Left alone, Charlotte wonders who Miyu-sensei was referring to, her curiosity quietly growing. Watching Charlotte leave, Miyu-sensei quietly reflects that she might really be able to change Aoyagi for the better. In the background, Charlotte pauses, those words lingering in her mind. At the present, Charlotte lies in bed, hugging her pillow and thinking about everything she heard. She tells herself that from now on, she'll make sure she and Aoyagi get along, remembering how kind he truly is. Still, a small doubt remains as she grips the pillow tighter, wondering what he really meant by his words. Miyu scratches her head and lets out a tired sigh, leaning against her desk. Aoyagi notices immediately and calmly comments that it looks painful. Afterwards, he got shocked because Charlotte turns back toward Aoyagi and happily calls his name, waving at him with a bright smile. Aoyagi freezes. In his mind, he panics, reminding himself that he already decided not to get involved with her at school. Miyu suddenly calls out to Aoyagi, asking him to wait a moment. Caught off guard, Aoyagi reacts in surprise. Miyu mentions that it's almost the next period, but asks the class to behave until the next teacher arrives. She grabs her materials and heads toward the door, telling everyone to bear with her for just a bit. Outside the classroom, Miyu casually comments that things seem to be going well with Charlotte. Aoyagi, confused, asks what she means. Miyu turns back and points out that she clearly saw Charlotte smiling and waving at him. Flustered, Aoyagi internally complains about how troublesome this situation is. Sweating, Aoyagi weakly denies it, but Miyu bluntly calls him out, saying he was grinning like an idiot. Miyu leans in close to Aoyagi and bluntly tells him that his eyes were smiling. Flustered, Aoyagi looks away, clearly embarrassed. Charlotte appears in his thoughts, smiling gently. Aoyagi panics and raises his voice, asking Miyu not to phrase things in a way that makes him sound suspicious. Miyu crosses her arms, unfazed, and tells him to calm down and move on. Miyu pats Aoyagi on the shoulder and firmly tells him to take care of Charlotte. Aoyagi hesitates, saying she seems capable enough to manage on her own. Miyu explains that she isn't worried about Charlotte's ability, but about her being a foreigner and attracting unwanted attention. As Charlotte reads quietly nearby, Aoyagi finds himself unable to forget her smile from earlier, and admits to himself that her looks only make things harder for him to ignore. Miyu cheerfully says she'll keep an eye on things and gives Aoyagi a confident thumbs up, telling him she's counting on him. Aoyagi, unsure of how much help he can actually be, quietly says he understands. As Miyu turns away, she sighs and mutters that things would be much easier if everyone were like him. She reaches for the door, tapping it lightly, then suddenly stops and turns back, saying there's one more thing. Startled, Aoyagi hurriedly says he'll head back to class. Miyu warns Aoyagi to watch out for himself too, not just Charlotte. She tells him that while she may be relying on him regarding Charlotte, he shouldn't sacrifice himself for others. Aoyagi turns away, thinking to himself that this is the line he has drawn and that he needs to atone for what he's done. Miyu watches him in silence, saying nothing. Miyu questions whether acting like this is really his idea of atonement, making someone completely unrelated happier. Aoyagi answers calmly, saying that as long as Akira is happy, nothing else matters to him. Miyu snaps back, reminding him that she's told him before that he's also a victim in all of this. Aoyagi asks Miyu not to pry any further. He tells her that no matter how much someone knows, in the end there's still an outsider. He quietly adds that he's stubborn about this. Miyu looks at him, then responds with a confident smile, saying that no matter what he says, she has absolutely no intention of staying out of it. Aoyagi apologizes, admitting he went too far. Miyu reassures him, saying she knows he didn't mean it. She reaches out and places a hand on his head, gently telling him that he's carrying far too many burdens on his shoulders. Miyu casually pats Aoyagi on the head, brushing off his worries. Aoyagi tells her that from his perspective, it really isn't as easy as she thinks. Miyu smiles and replies that she's convinced his way of thinking will eventually change. Seeing how he acted today made that clear to her. When Aoyagi asks what she means, Miyu waves it off, admitting she doesn't know how long it will take, but she's sure it will happen. Later, the scene shifts outside the school building as the day winds down. Charlotte sits with a small child, holding a picture book titled Black Cat Story. The child looks up at her and softly asks if she can play with Oni-chan. Charlotte listens quietly, her expression gentle and attentive. Charlotte gently apologizes to Emma, explaining that she's been playing with Aoyagi a lot lately. She adds that if they do it every day, it'll start bothering him, so today has to be a no. Emma puffs her cheeks in protest, clearly unhappy. Charlotte lightly squeezes her cheeks and calmly tells her that making a cute face won't change the answer. Emma sulks harder, shaking with frustration, while Charlotte watches with a slightly troubled smile. Charlotte kneels down and asks Emma to hold back just for today. She reassures her softly that if Emma behaves, Aoyagi will come and play again another time. Still sulking, Emma lies down and starts drawing instead, crayons spread around her. Charlotte calls her name gently. With the mood settled, Charlotte suggests they go shopping together. Emma nods in agreement and gets up, the tension finally easing. Emma quietly puts on her shoes, tapping them into place while holding Charlotte's hand. Charlotte turns back with a bright smile and cheerfully says they're ready to go. Emma immediately lights up, grabbing Charlotte's hand tightly as they head out together. As they leave, Charlotte notes that Emma dislikes being picked up by others and prefers walking on her own. She also reflects that Emma has never really held hands with anyone except her mother or herself before. A quiet image flashes in her mind of Emma clinging happily to Aoyagi, making her realize he's a rare exception. Charlotte smiles softly, thinking that Aoyagi's kindness must be something his family truly cherishes. Turning back with a warm expression, she casually asks what Emma would like to have for dinner today. Charlotte suddenly notices something is wrong and freezes in shock. Emma slips out of her reach in an instant. Charlotte realizes what just happened. A wave of panic hits her as she blurts out that Emma is gone. Emma swings a long stick overhead with all her strength, proudly shouting as if she's striking an enemy. The stick slams into a doorbell or intercom, making it ring loudly. Charlotte lunges forward in alarm, shouting Emma's name and demanding to know what she's doing. Emma proudly raises the stick and happily declares that it rang, clearly pleased with herself. Charlotte scolds her, saying she can't do things like that, while Emma struggles and insists she wants to play with Oni-chan. Charlotte explains again that doing this will bother people, hesitating as she looks conflicted. The door suddenly opens, and Aoyagi appears, surprised by the commotion. Emma instantly recognizes him and runs straight into his legs, hugging him tightly with a huge smile. Aoyagi awkwardly asks if they'd like to come inside for now, scratching his cheek nervously. Charlotte hesitates for a moment, clearly flustered, then quietly agrees. Emma eagerly reaches out, tugging them closer, her small action bringing the two nearer than before. Sasagawa is fast asleep at home when Miyu repeatedly slaps her cheeks, trying to wake her up. Sasagawa only mumbles drowsily, clearly not ready to get up. She then finally stirs and lazily asks what time it is. Miyu tells her it's already noon and reminds her that Sasagawa was the one who invited her over to watch a drama. Still half asleep, Sasagawa stretches across the bed without any urgency. She then sighs in resignation and says she'll go make some food instead. Sasagawa-sensei casually drops down beside Miyu on the couch, leaning in close with an easy, relaxed smile. Miyu snaps back, telling her not to cling like that and calling her a nuisance, clearly flustered but trying to stay composed. Sasagawa speaks lightly, acting as if this level of closeness is completely normal between female friends. Miyu narrows her eyes, pointing at her and accusing Sasagawa of definitely being up to something. Sasagawa laughs it off, unfazed, teasing Miyu as if she's overreacting. A flashback shows Sasagawa clinging tightly to Miyu back during their school days, smiling without any hesitation. Miyu angrily recalls how Sasagawa was so clingy back then that rumors spread around school, claiming Miyu liked girls. She protests loudly, saying it wasn't her fault. Miyu looked like a boy back then, so people misunderstood. Back in the present, Sasagawa leans in again, sulking and accusing Miyu of not caring about her feelings at all. Miyu finally snaps, yelling at her to stop already and calling her hopelessly dense, her irritation mixing with embarrassment. Meanwhile, on the TV, there was a Yuri drama is playing, which outlines the feelings that Sasagawa has for Miyu.